Having your resume spill onto an errant second, third, or fourth page is the resume equivalent of having to lay down and button up your pants. Oh, so close, but so far. In this video, I'm going to point out some resume space wasters that you can easily trim in order to make sure that your resume fits 1, 2, or 3 pages. And we're not talking about little tweaks in this video. We're going to be covering actual full sections that you can cut completely in order to make the most of your resume real estate. I'm Kamara, Toffolo, resume writer, LinkedIn consultant, job search strategist, and LinkedIn top voice who helps established professionals dare to do work differently and land great fitting gigs. I post new job search videos every week, and my videos will equip you with some of the most valuable information to make your job search easier, because job searching shouldn't be this hard. First off, I want to remind you that there is no rule around number of pages that should or should not exist in your resume. Any rule around number of pages is either arbitrary, a rumor, or marketing in the form of fear-mongering. Well, I only write one-page resumes because I know for a fact that recruiters don't read beyond page 1. Bullshit. I have a whole video on number of pages that should or shouldn't be in your resume, and I've linked to it in the description below. While the number of pages that exists or doesn't exist in your resume doesn't really matter, we do want our resumes to look well-planned and intentional. So if we have a straggler page with a couple lines spilling onto it, we just want to clean it up. So let's take a look at the usual space-saving suspects and what we should do about them. We're going to use Michael Scott's resume to guide us. In the resume days of yore, you may have come across some resumes with an awards and achievements section on it, probably close to the bottom of the resume. It may have looked something like this. Often these sections identify awards, as is obvious based on the subheader, or achievements as well, as is also obvious based on the subheader, or things like recognition in the community, etc. This section is a big-time resume space waster because it comes with its own subheader, and you'll need at least 2 or 3 bullets highlighting accomplishments, awards, and achievements, because it would look pretty weird to just include one bullet, right? Instead of having this actual section dedicated specifically to awards and achievements and accomplishments, we still want to highlight the awards, achievements, and accomplishments, but we want to do so under the job or schooling or volunteering in which these happened. This will give context to the awards, achievements, and accomplishments, and it will help demonstrate the skills that you're claiming in the skills section and how you are qualified for your target role. Next on the chopping block is the hobbies and interests section. There's an argument made for the hobbies and interests section that this is a way to humanize yourself as a job seeker. I call bullshit on this. Of all of the space-wasting sections on your resume, I see the hobbies and interests section as the big daddy of space wasters. Not to mention, it can put your personal life under the microscope and expose it to bias. First of all, hobbies and interests do not humanize you any more than keywords show that you're qualified for a job. Tell me exactly how including underwater basket weaving makes you more human than someone who didn't include this on their resume. Tell me how listing cake decorating will endear you to the hiring manager. Including your hobbies and interests on your resume is really an arbitrary ad of information from your personal life. And your personal life really should be kept under lock and key, because any information you volunteer in a resume or in an interview is fair game for bias and scrutiny. Maybe you share on your resume that you're interested in left-wing politics. What if the interviewer is a conservative? More on including religion and politics in a recent video. Perhaps you share that one of your hobbies is MMA. What if the hiring manager considers this to be violence? Maybe you mention that you're part of an MLM. This could be considered a distraction from your job. So instead of including a hobbies and interests section on your resume, just cut it and make sure that you're focusing on writing a resume, cover letter, and LinkedIn profile that really highlights your qualifications as well as your contributions to your work. Don't worry, you don't seem like a robot because you don't mention what you do in your spare time on your resume. A volunteering section on your resume is a nice to have. By no means is it necessary. I've also seen a lot of talk amongst recruiters that they really don't care about volunteering and they only really want to see it if it's relevant to the job for which you're applying or fills a career gap, or maybe if you held a few different board positions. When I'm writing resumes for my clients, the community involvement, volunteering, or community leadership section is the first area I will trim or sacrifice in order to make more space for work experience and accomplishments. I'll also automatically cut the volunteering or community involvement or community leadership section if my client hasn't volunteered actively within the last 5 years. In addition to that, if my client only volunteered once for a very short period of time within the last 5 years, let's say, maybe a season at a shelter, then I'm going to cut that as well. So when we take a look at Michael's resume, his volunteering section will be completely cut because Scott's Tots was dismantled 11 years ago. Keeping this section really makes it seem like Michael is not actively committed to giving back to the community and that he's probably just included his time with Scott's Tots for his own ego. If you do opt to cut your volunteering from your resume, by all means, you can absolutely transplant it over to your LinkedIn profile. You have basically an infinite amount of volunteer space to work with there. And if you're in a situation where you need to fill an employment gap with, say, a short period of time volunteering, you can still easily cut the volunteering section itself and instead include a single line that mentions how you've been volunteering and where during that employment gap. Next up is a project section. I'm often seeing professionals in project-based roles creating entire project sections on their resumes. This section is often outside of the professional experience, in addition to it. This is a really big space waster as well. The inherent problem with having a project section is that it's unclear where and when you executed these projects. It also creates work for the reader because it requires them to cross-reference your projects section against the jobs that you've held to try and get some sort of idea about where you demonstrated the skills and strengths that you're claiming in your skills section. Instead of having an actual project section dedicated to projects, you'll want to cut that and then transplant project highlights under the jobs in which they happen. Further, when you're making the decision whether or not to highlight a project, you want to make sure that it is of the best projects that you were ever a part of, and that they are really helping reinforce and demonstrate the strengths and skills required and desired of you in your target job. And the project section on LinkedIn, I wouldn't even bother with it. It's not something that is really actively read by anyone. If your skills section looks like this, then we've got a problem. What we've got here is a skills section or areas of expertise section that is symptomatic of being a part of a functional resume. Functional resumes do us no favors as job seekers. More about that in the video I made on functional resumes versus chronological resumes. These huge skills sections a la functional resumes don't help the reader get any sort of idea where you demonstrated the skills that you're actually claiming and when. What this means is they can't actually assess whether you are qualified or not for the role. What that means is no interview. The skills section on your resume should be very brief and highlight skills that are desired and required of you in your target job. These skills are further reinforced and backed up by the accomplishments that you share in your professional experience section. So these are just a few of the massive space wasters on resumes that you can eliminate in order to help your resume properly fit on 1, 2, 3 pages or more, depending on what you've intended. And here's my cue for you. Did you have any of these resume space wasters in your resume? Would you like another video on how to save space on your resume? Tell me in the comments below. As you know, I make a lot of videos, but I also make free guides to help you in your job search. If you'd like my free cover letter guide and checklist or my free post-interview thank you guide and templates, you can download them by signing up for them. The links are in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, give it a like, share it with a friend, and click on my face over there. over there? Never know. And subscribe. And I'll see you next time.